Well, hey there, everybody. This is Snackbox coming to you to talk to you about the Colorado Trail Segment 9. Going to give you my best tips and tricks. We got a lot to do, and it is a dreary day here, so I want to get to it so I can go back home and drink some hot chocolate. Let's get to it. Talking to me? Oh yeah, I'm talking to you. So segment 9 of the Colorado Trail is the beginning of what I'm going to call the grind. And what I mean by the grind is the next number of segments, especially if you go east at the collegiate range, are a real grind. There's a lot of really hard climbing, a lot of hard hiking. It can be very, very tough, and there's not as much payoff as what we've seen before and what we're going to see, especially after Monarch Pass. Things explode. I mean, it is just incredible how different it is after Monarch Pass. But from here until Monarch Pass, it can be really tough, especially if you go east. My plan is to go west at the collegiate range this year. I've done the loop before, and I can tell you that the west is spectacular, but we're going to talk about that a little later. Let's talk first about the basics of segment 9. Just your bare bones information. Segment 9 is 13.6 miles. It goes from the Tennessee Pass to the Timberline Lake Trailhead. It has about 2,600 feet of elevation gain and about 3,000 feet of descent. This is a really, really interesting section because it is where you really have to work. It's a tough segment to love. It's not my personal favorite. Might not be your personal favorite, but it is a segment that I can imagine will be a lot of people's personal favorite. Here are the handful of tips that I have for you heading into segment 9. The first tip I have for you is so small and so silly you won't believe it even makes this list, but it's still one worth mentioning. When you get to the trailhead, there's a big parking lot there, and you can hitchhike down US Highway 24 into Leadville. You can get a resupply. A lot of you will choose to do so, and then you'll catch a ride back up some way or another back up to the trailhead. And here's the thing. The trail continues on the same side of the highway, so you don't cross US Highway 24 to continue the trail. This is important because a lot of times I've seen a lot of people, me, go over to the other side and look for where it continues and be frustrated and not able to find it. So just know that the trail continues on the same side of US Highway 24. You're not going to cross it to find the trail on the other side. I've already mentioned my second tip for this stretch. I want to develop it a little more. I want to talk a little more in depth about how the mosquitoes in this section can be really instrumental in deciding some of the best ways to approach and tackle this stretch. In the last video that I made for segment 8, I talked about how before you start this stretch, and especially segment 10, you need to have your bug protection handled in some way, shape, or form. That's still very, very true. Definitely handle your bug protection. Have something to keep bugs off of you. Just make sure that you don't take off into the stretch without some type of bug protection. That leads me into sort of tip 2B, I guess we would say at this point. And what I'm going to recommend is at this stretch, you want to dry camp in these areas. What dry camping means is that you're not going to camp near a water supply. You're actually going to pack up some water and take it with you to an area that you can camp without any water sources nearby. This means that it's a little more inconvenient for you whenever you're trying to plan out your day and plan where you're going to stop for the night and how you're going to do breakfast in the morning. But the real advantage here is that if you dry camp, you're able to set up your tent somewhere that there's a little bit of a breeze. The next piece of advice with this second tip, it's sort of tip A, B, and C, I guess you'd say. Make sure you have bug protection, dry camp somewhere, and that somewhere, try to make it somewhere with a breeze. So sometimes maybe you're gonna be on the top of a ridge line, something of the sort. With these birds here that are making so much noise, what are they doing here? So you wanna camp somewhere with a little bit of a breeze. One of the interesting things about mosquitoes is, as frustrating as they are to deal with, they are very bad at handling any level of wind. So if you can camp somewhere with a little bit of a breeze, you are going to be in great shape for keeping them off of you. These guys are so loud. Can you hear them? Can you hear them? And then finally, about 10 miles into the stretch, there's a lake called Bear Lake. Bear Lake is about 10.4 miles in. And when you're planning out your days, this makes perfect sense to try to set up shop at Bear Lake. There are some campsites in and around Bear Lake, but I'm going to recommend that you actually don't camp there. This should be no surprise if you just heard my last tip about dry camping, but Bear Lake is a spot that really, really gets buggy. It's kind of swampy and marshy around it. There are leeches in the water. It's not a great spot for a dip if that's your plan. If you need to fill up on water, that would be fine. You can even do this if you're treating your water with drops. You can really carefully fill it without getting a lot of sediment in the water, and then treat it however you're going to treat it. But I don't recommend camping at Bear Lake. It is not great for camping. The mosquitoes are really high. The water water is. It's beautiful, don't get me wrong. It's a Colorado alpine lake. It's gonna be incredible. Find yourself a nice dry campsite, fill up some water, go find a nice breezy area away from water so that you can minimize as much of those mosquitoes as you can through this stretch. And know that as you look ahead to the end of the stretch, there is a bathroom at the start of segment 10. It's at the trailhead for, I believe, Mount Massive, might be the Timberline Lake trailhead, but it's about 2/10 of a mile in. So if you wake up that next morning toward the front of it, it's a really good spot to try to plan your number two. Your number twos in segment 10. These are some tough stretches. This stretch tends to have often a little bit of the residual snow in it, especially because there are a lot of shaded areas. You're not above tree line very much. There tends to be a lot of mud whenever the snow starts to melt. So just be ready for this, because this can be a real slog for a lot of people. The climbing is not excessive. I mean, you're talking 2,600 feet of climbing over 13.5 miles. So it's not a lot of climbing, but the stretches where there is climbing tend to be pretty steep through here. So be prepared for that. Well, that covers it for segment 9. We're trying to keep these videos really short. I hope that you will like and subscribe to this channel. I'm really enjoying getting to know everybody. Stay tuned. On the next video, I'm going to be announcing our next giveaway. We just gave away a vintage camel 3-person tent. It was a really kind of fun thing to do. I've got a really great new item for the next one. It's brand new. It's not vintage, and it's going to serve everybody. Even if you're not a really experienced backpacker, I think it's a really cool kind of item. So subscribe so you can stick around and find out what that is, because if you've subscribed, you will be entered in that drawing. And then lastly, I'm trying to build this community specifically as a community. So I don't want to just be a channel. I want it to be a place where people get to know each other and meet each other. So what I'm hoping is, if you're planning to hike the Colorado Trail this summer of 2021, you'll comment below, tell us when you're hoping to launch and what you're most excited about in the trail. So mention that in the comments below, so get excited about it. Thanks everybody. The Snack Box, I'm out. I need to go warm up my little hands because these fingers are super cold, but these dogs are not super cold. Those are the warmest puppies on the planet. That's Katie and Tara. They said that you should like and subscribe, and you should always listen to them. I'll see you all later.